Peace, beautiful people. It's your boy Dev with DP, and we're back for another session of Real Talk with DP and Dev. We are here to give you some free gems as we've been doing for the past few weeks. Past couple of weeks, we've been hitting you with some good information in terms of marriage and how men respond and how we keep each other accountable. But we're back to the business at hand, which is fixing and flipping real estate. So we're going to continue to do this for the next few weeks, and hopefully you benefit from this, and hopefully you're able to use this information to be able to apply it to what it is that you want to do to be successful in the fix and flip game. AP, what's up, brother?
What's going on, Dale? How you doing today?
I'm good, man. Busy day, but productive, so that's always a good thing.
Yeah, right? With that.
Yeah, for sure. So let's jump right in, man. Let's go ahead and get to it. We're gonna go ahead and open up the slide deck. And we're gonna be talking. What are we talking about today? We talking about fixing and flipping today?
Fix and flip. Let me share the screen.
All right. Let me make sure I maximize this. Cool. So let's talk about fixing and flipping, right? So why do people fix and flip? What are some of the advantages of fixing and flipping? Well, first and foremost, the thing about fixing and flipping is it does benefit and you do receive generous rewards. It's one of those things where you're able to control your wealth, in terms of the real estate game. And you have the potential to do a bunch of different things when it comes to fixing and flipping. First and foremost, what are some of the advantages? One in particular is you do make a profit off of fixing and flipping. Now, the thing about it is, I know it says you have the potential to make a quick profit, but fixing and flipping is not one of them games that actually would occur just like that, fly by night. You do have to put a lot of work into it, but the work that you put into it, you will receive a pretty substantial and great benefit, depending on if you do the right due diligence. Right, DP?
Yeah. It's not a fly by night thing, and it's and especially in today's market with COVID, everything is not moving as fast as it normally would be. So you may have to add a month or two, or maybe even more. It depends on the level of renovations you're doing. So just got to keep that in mind, and be mindful of that when you're picking up certain types of houses.
Right. So that's the thing, right? So when we previously had our sessions, we talked about having the right team with you, and as we say, you're only as good as the team that you have around you. So when you are going into this fix and flip game, one of the things that you will attain is experience, and a couple of areas that you'll attain experience in. We'll talk about now. First and foremost, construction. If you don't know anything about construction, but you have somebody on your team that does, that person can kind of guide you through what it is that you should be looking for as you continue to gain experience in the fix and flip game. From repairing to renovating to remodeling, you'll understand and learn certain things when it comes to inspections for electrical, mechanical, and plumbing. And if you have an older house, you'll also run into some issues such as structural problems and environmental hazards like mold and asbestos. When it comes to asbestos, you usually don't see them on houses, that were built in the 80s and 90s. Usually you see them in older houses. You're talking about 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. And there are some houses out there still on the market that you can use to fix and flip. But when you find those type of houses, that's where you usually see the asbestos. So that is an area that we're not really going to dive too deep into. But if you're looking at houses during that age and time frame, always keep in the back of your mind that you may have to do some type of asbestos abatement or asbestos testing as you go through your fix and flip. One of the other things that you do want to take a look into in terms of an environmental hazard that's all across the board, and that's whenever there's any type of moisture that infiltrates into a house, is mold. It takes really fast for mold to grow. Only thing that's needed really is moisture and darkness. And then after that, mold can form and grow. And that can actually put a dent into your budget if you don't look at it in rectify it immediately. Moisture, anything within the home, that's another environmental hazard that you may want to look into. But those are things that you will learn as you go, and those are the experiences that you'll gain as you go through the construction side of fixing and flipping. DP?
Yeah, to get rid of mold, to remediate mold, you sometimes have to. And if people have seen a house where they had water damage or like a pipe burst,
Mm,
and you haven't, somebody wasn't there when it burst, and now you got water damage in the sheetrock, and water. The mediation team comes in and they cut like the lower part of the drywall out throughout several rooms because they want to make sure they can get those humidifiers and those air scrubbers in there
right.
to dry in between the walls, not just the outside surface.
Mm,
But if somebody's not there, let's say you go on vacation for a week and a pipe burst, or even 2 weeks, the pipe burst, and no one is there to know it burst. And when you get back, because that moisture was sitting and the house was enclosed, and you may have turned the air down if it's summertime because nobody's there, and now you got this, this warm area with this dampness, and now you got mold growing. You
yeah.
know, you'd be surprised how fast that mold can grow in the right environment. So and you don't know what's behind the wall until you open it up sometime. It may look like just spores on the outside, but when you open it up, the 2x4s, the stud walls, and the base plate may be either rotted or molded, and you got to do some type of remediation to treat it, because you don't want to just cover the walls back up and paint it because it will come back through that drywall.
Yeah. Yeah. And, we're talking about thousands and thousands of dollars
Yeah,
for remediation. And that can truly bust your budget if you haven't did the proper due diligence and the proper investigation when it comes to mold. So those are things that you need to be mindful of. And again, as we mentioned previously, you're only as good as your team. So you want to have somebody on your team who's really well versed in construction, who can point certain things out that you may have missed, but can save you money in the long run. So,
definitely.
so a couple other things in terms of fixing and flipping as we move forward. Local markets. So very important to do market research. Why? Because your interpretation and thought of what you may want your house to look like may not actually be conducive and fit into the area that you are in. For example, you see, there are some areas now within the city of Atlanta where you have a mixture of modern homes and older style homes, right? And in some aspects, the modern home maybe was hot in the market and you may be able to gain a lot of money from that. But conversely, you may actually have your house on the market longer because it doesn't fit with the aesthetic of the actual neighborhood. So it's important for you to do your market research before you purchase the property and really work with your realtor to truly get a grasp of what that market is and what those homes look like within that particular area that you're looking into. And you want to make sure that your house is attractive, but also in alignment with the neighborhood looks like. Because you don't want to go ahead and put all this money into a house and make it look so different from everything else that in the long run it may be on the market longer than what you want it to be.
Yeah, and we see that a lot now with these spot building. Developer will buy an old shack and he'll build this, house that's much bigger than the house around it, and it's those rectangular with the clean lines and
Right,
the
with the clean lines, yeah. Yep.
flat roofs. Um, you know, if you're building it for yourself and that's what you want, that's fine and dandy because you're
Right.
gonna live there. But if you're building it for resale, fix and flip, you got to be kind of careful because it doesn't appeal to the masses. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? So you're limiting your buyer pool, but it may sell. It just you just never know.
Yeah, that's the thing. It just may take longer than it may take longer to sell than what you anticipate. If your plans are like, yeah, I'm gonna get, you anticipate this being off the market fast. It really all depends on what the demand is at that time and what type of customer you're attracting to purchase your home.
Yeah, another part of it, if the other house in the neighborhood on that street is 12, 1,300 square feet, and you build this this huge 3,000 square foot house, you
Right.
know, or even in the neighborhood, now it's about, are you going to get the right comps for your house to value to what you want it to be? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because that could be an issue if there are no other houses in the vicinity the same style or size.
Right.
Now you're really leaving it up to the appraiser to to come up with a value, and it may go in your favor and it may not. So that's a chance you take.
One of the other things I also want to add when it comes to local markets is make sure that you do your due diligence in terms of the district that you're in. For example, you may see a house that you are interested in and you want to fix and flip it, but it may be in a historic district. And if it's in a historic district, then that means that you need to make sure that your finishes and everything that you do to renovate that house is in line with everything that's on that same in that same neighborhood, on that same block, within that same district. If you deviate from that, then you won't be able to get your plans approved to actually do the fix and flip that you want. So that goes into your local market research as well, just to get well versed on what district you're in, what requirements are associated with that district, and what best suits you in terms of how you want your house to look after you renovate it.
Yeah, if you're going into a historic district, talk to the out here it's called an NPU.
Right.
It's like the neighborhood representative, and see what they and ask them questions about your plans for the renovation. The interior, it really doesn't matter, but the exterior, they want it to be in line with the existing neighborhood.
Yep.
So you want to, run it by them before you have these grandiose ideas about what you want to do, and you can't do any of it. And then we were on one call with the historic urban design.
Urban design, right?
These guys already renovated the house, and they put a stop work order because they changed the look of the house, and I don't know what's going to happen with them at that point, because what do you do? Because one person would ask, well, what do you do with all the material you demoed from the outside?
Right.
And those dumpsters have already been carried away with that material because they wanted them to fish through the dumpsters and take out like the siding, the wood siding, and reinstall it. But
right.
What do you do at that point? But they kind of got ahead of themselves. And that's just a chance you take. If you get away with it, it's
Great.
fine. But when you have those historic neighborhoods, you have people looking at you all the time, because that's one of the reasons why people buy in those neighborhoods, because they like the character of the houses in the neighborhood.
Personality of that neighborhood. So risky game gets risky rewards in terms of if you want to take that risk and not go through those channels, it's at your own risk on whatever happens. Historic district and urban design developments. They can be really stringent down to the color of the house. They may have some specifics on the type of colors that you could use on the exterior of your home to match what the existing other houses are. So you need to just be mindful of that also.
Yeah, you can almost compare it to a homeowners association. If we change our front door, we got to submit what it's going to look like. If we change the color of the house, we got to get approval. Anything you do on the exterior of our house, we got to get approval from the homeowners association. So it's similar to that, because they want the houses to have similar characteristics, and they don't want anybody to go too far outside of that.
Right.
That palette almost.
Right, for sure. So another advantage and experience that you'll gain is buyer insights. Once you fix your first property, you get your feet wet, you get a better understanding and feel for, the buyers in the area, what they're looking for. So, as you're going through your first fix and flip or your second one, just take notes and make sure that you understand what the buyer may like and what they don't like, especially if you're still continuing to flip in the same area that you did your first one in. So that's going to be important, and you get a better grasp and feel about what works, what doesn't work, when you should buy, when you should not buy, what area you should buy in, and what area you should not buy in. Also, one of the things that you will be mindful of as you continue through this journey is unanticipated costs. I usually call them unforeseen conditions, right? Because there are things that you just may not know. So, some of the things that you want to put into your budget is a contingency for construction, especially when you're dealing with an older house, because once you start knocking down walls, there's certain things that you will find that you would not have known unless you knocked the wall down. So you want to have some padding and cushion for that. Also, you want to have some cost in there for permits. Building permits cost. You may have some construction delays based on, halt in the permitting process or a delay in the permitting process. You may have to get plans may get disapproved, and you may have to go back and do some rework, which is time, and time also equates to money. Delays in delivery of materials, which is a common thing that happens, especially now during the pandemic. Things are delayed, and prices for material are high. So when you're doing your budget, you want to make sure that you incorporate all of those things and be mindful of those things as you actually do your budget out. DP?
Yeah, definitely. Material is a big thing. I mean, look at a half-inch sheet of plywood. 2 years ago, it used to be like $7, $8. Now it's $40, $50, and it's steady
Yeah,
rising.
right.
And there's no relief in sight. Yeah,
Yeah,
because the problem with when items become expensive, even if they come back down, they're never coming back to the price it was before. Because now you're used to paying that cost. These lumber mills, they're gonna, you know, profit as much as they can.
One of the things that you'll also be mindful of in this fix and flip game is every flip is not going to go as fast as you want it. You may have some property that you got to hold. And if you got to hold those properties, you still have to pay the mortgage on the property that you actually own until you sell it. So, you don't necessarily want that to happen, but that is a possibility. So it's always important to think about the unanticipated costs that may be within your budget. And that's why it's always important to make sure you have a contingency budget as well. And there may be times when your contingency budget that you put aside may be used because of all of the different changes that you may have, but at least you had it in there
Yeah,
as opposed to not having it in the first place. So,
definitely, definitely.
yeah.
All right. Location is everything. Know your market.
Mhm.
Which neighborhoods are being revitalized? Um, when you go into certain neighborhoods, you can see renovations being done, dumpsters in front of houses,
Yeah.
white women walking,
What you say, white women walk?
walking the dogs and the babies. And that's just a part of gentrification because other races can move into a black community, and it doesn't affect the price of homes. But when white folks move into a black community, I mean, it really affects the price of. It's almost like they can pick and choose a certain neighborhood and say,
Right.
"Hey, we want to make this neighborhood thrive again," and they'll come in and start renovating, and they'll move in because for some reason they have no fear to move into a neighborhood that hadn't been revitalized yet. They
Mhm.
have the fear of being the first ones in that neighborhood because they understand that, hey, if I get in first, I'm gonna profit the most because I'm buying at the lowest market rate.
Right.
And then the next year or two, when all these other houses start to be rehabbed and sold, now I have all this equity in my house. And they know that once they start moving in, the presence of the cops, the police officers are going to start patrolling more. Um, if it's a high crime area, they're going to start having cameras out. I mean, it's a sad reality, but it's reality.
DP, what's an area like that now in Atlanta that you could think of that's happened?
The bluff,
Okay.
the bluff, it happened and it's happening. Because you still got some streets in the bluff that's rough. Even the West End off of Lee Street.
Yeah.
You
Lee Street is a perfect example.
yeah, but they'll come in on the front end of it and get it started, and then you see the numbers start going up and up and up. And and again, it's almost like they pick and choose what neighborhoods they want to be in, and hey, now that's the neighborhood that's hot.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand. Well, I understand how they do it, because once they start coming in, more of them are going to come in to live, because now they feel comfortable. So now you have like these new developments, bars, restaurants, coffee houses, workplace live complexes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the
And
city the city comes in and paves the roads. You got new parks going on. All that stuff happens once they come in, and some of them are research. City's future plans. So the city, because the city got a plan 10, 20 years ahead. You know what I'm saying? So
right,
if they understand that, so some of them know that, hey, we need to get over in this area here, because there's going to be a lot of government money invested in this neighborhood or in this community. So we need to get in on the front end before everybody else knows about it. So
mm-hmm.
when it does happen, we receive the most benefit from the appreciation of the houses.
Right, right, right. Yeah.
So, it's about doing your homework, because it's sad that a lot of time once we find out about it, it's either in the middle or the end cycle of it.
It's too late. It's too late.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Sure.
Um, historically designated area. I know here in Atlanta and a lot of other cities, they put little small signs on top of the street sign, and that tells you if the neighborhood is a historically designated area, because it have the name of the neighborhood on top of the sign. New companies moving into the area. Here we have like Google. What's another one that this home? I just passed a Home Depot in
Is that
Stone Mountain, off of what's that, Stone Mountain, Lithonia Road.
yeah? What's the building going up um next to in Atlantic Station? Is that Microsoft?
I believe so.
Yep. So you had Microsoft that just got built. You had Carvana in that same area that just opened up not too long ago. Amazon is continuing to build
Yeah.
distribution warehouses all over Atlanta. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So when you see these things happening, you know that one, they're going to have, they got to employ a lot of people in these buildings. And then those jobs are going to be not your 8 to 9 hour job. If you got Microsoft, those are going to be 6-figure earners, a lot of them.
for
uh,
sure.
Google, 6-figure earner. So now they got to have a place to stay, because right now most houses. I mean, Atlanta is when a house goes on the market in Atlanta today. In a day or two, you got 30, 40 bids on a house.
Right.
So there's enough houses for the population as it is, and now you got all these companies coming to bring more employees, because they're going to bring employees from other cities where their companies are located now. Everybody's not going to be a brand new employee to Microsoft.
Right.
So it's going to be more than just the new employees that Microsoft hired from Atlanta. And then you have all these kids who graduate, and now Microsoft, Google bring these kids in at entry level positions, and they come from all over the country from different colleges.
Not only the country, from all over the world.
Yeah, all over the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Don't be the first rehabber in the neighborhood.
Well, see,
Sometimes,
I was going to get to that, right? I was going to say that in the first slide. When it came to like the differences between the modern look as opposed to the traditional look in whatever neighborhood you're fixing and flipping in.
yeah,
One of the things I was going to say is make sure you don't want to be the first person. Usually it's good to be the first person in some aspects. If if you're a sneakerhead like me, you want to be the first person to cop them J's or whatever. But in terms of fixing and flipping, yeah, you don't want to be the first rehabber in the neighborhood.
unless you have deep pockets and you can ride it out, because what happens is that the first person in the neighborhood, you may think you can set the market, but if but then again, you give all the power to the appraiser.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? And it could swing either way. You know, it could benefit you tenfold, but it could also hurt you, because if you have no other properties to do your research from and compare numbers, then you know it it may not be that beneficial for you to be the first person. Or
Right.
even if you're the first person to buy, if you can afford to just buy and just hold it, and then let some other folks come in and start rehabbing and sell one or two of them, and at the market they set the price, because you still getting the property at the cheaper price because you're the first person to buy in the neighborhood. You don't necessarily have to be the first person that sell in the neighborhood. Um, yeah, the ARV may not be what you expect. You know what I'm saying? Appraisers may not be willing to give you top value if no flips have occurred in that area. How do you get the max ARV after repair value? One thing everybody wants now are open floor plans. You know, if you go back to like your grandparents' house or even your parents' house, you know, back in the day, every room had a door. The dining room had a door. The living room had a door. You know, but now everybody wants where you can walk in and really want to see from the back of the house to the front of the house, or from the front to the back, because they don't want any walls. Because if a family have young kids, if they're in the kitchen, they want to be, well, before the pandemic, they want to be able to see the kids playing, or being able to help them with their homework, but they don't have to actually be in the same room to keep an eye on it. Since the pandemic, some people want a little bit more, you know, comp, how you say it? Compartmentalized,
Yeah, compartmentalize. Yeah.
so you can have your space in different rooms for kids that are going to school at home. But that's only a phase, you know what I'm saying? Because I'm pretty sure this school year, you know, all kids are going to be back in school for the most part.
Yeah. 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 I found that during this pandemic that, obviously because everybody was in the house and couldn't really go anywhere, you either had people ready to rip each other's heads off, or you had people coming closer.
Yeah. So you need that space. You need one kid need to be able to go in this room, the other kid need to be able to go in that room, and the husband and the wife need to be separated for a period of time, and so forth.
Right.
Um, updated. If you do not have a modern panel box in the house, make sure you get a modern panel box, because when they do the home inspection, when you get when you get a contract, and the buyer is going to hire a home inspector, because they're not going to spend two, three, four, $500,000, even if it's a new build, and not get a home inspection, because once they bought it, it's theirs.
Right.
So they're going to look at the wiring, the panel box. They're going to take the cover off of it, and all that stuff, to make sure that it is what it is. And if it's not up to date, you're going to get dinged for that. And then you're going to make your buyer pool smaller, because, say, for instance, you got a single mom, or a young lady, or even a single dude who's from, let's say, New York. They don't want to have to, and now they move down south, and they used to live in an apartment. Now they're moving into a house. They don't want to have to do anything, like that kind of repair to that house, once they spend this $300,000-$400,000 on this house. So whatever comes back in that inspection report, they're going to take the recommendation of that inspector or their realtor. So if there's an electrical issue, they're not going to buy the house. You know what I'm saying? You're going to have a problem, and you might as well deal with it on the front end while you're doing the rehab, versus having to reopen walls up and deal with it later on.
True indeed.
And the same thing with HVAC system.
Mm.
If your HVAC system is more than maybe 2, 3 years old, 5 years at the max, replace it.
You
You
should
know,
get some replacement, correct? Right.
yeah. Because that's another big ticket item. If you got 2 units in your house, that could cost somebody up to $10,000 to replace those 2 units.
And
You
not
know,
only that, everybody is big into energy efficiency now anyway. So
yeah,
you want to be mindful of that also.
yeah. Again, nobody wants to spend 300,000 and then have to kick out another 10,000 in a year or two.
Right. Yeah.
Uh, Plumbing. Nobody. If you have galvanized plumbing lines, get rid of it. Go ahead and do a whole new plumbing system. The black steel drain pipes, at least get rid of what's coming out of the ground running under the house, and have a plumber come and camera from the under the house to the street, just to make sure there's no clog. You know what I'm saying? Because that's something that, even though you got new PVC coming from where it stubs out of the ground in the crawl space or in the basement, going to all your fixtures. When talking about the drain pipes, that new homeowners, potential buyers may be like, well, I don't want to deal with a plumbing problem where I got to dig up my yard and replace the main sewer line coming from the street in 3 to 5 years.
Right.
Well, I would go ahead and spend a couple of $100 and have it cameraed, where the plumber comes and run a camera through the drain lines and just see how, if it's corroded, is it collapsed, whatever. Because I bought a house and it was a rental property, and we ended up spending another $5,000-6,000, replacing that main line because it was collapsed. A tree grew through it, but the house was vacant for probably 5-6 years.
Really?
Yeah, and this house was on a hill, so the quotes I was getting like ridiculous because the the depth of the pipe was like 10 feet deep or 13 feet deep or something like that. So nobody wants to just dig a 13 feet hole and jump in it. You got to shore it up and all that stuff. So the hole wouldn't collapse on you, so you can actually work in it.
Right.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Wow.
So I mean, and these are things that even people who have been in the business for a while, when houses have been vacant, you do not know what you're going to run into because nobody's been using the toilet the same if it's been vacant for 5 years. So trees are in the yard, roots grow.
That's the thing. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah. So you got to be prepared for that when it happens. Good thing that was a rental. So I knew I had a little time to get that fixed.
Mm-hmm.
So I was able to, deal with or get price from several people. I didn't have to go with this first person because it was an emergency that I need to get this done because I got a closing date to meet.
Yep.
So stuff like water heaters, go ahead and just replace that.
Yeah.
Toilets, sinks. I mean, 9 times out of 10, if you're doing a flip, if it's not just a cosmetic flip where you just painting new flooring and that type of stuff, the fixtures you probably get in the bathroom anyway.
So you're gonna put new fixtures in there regardless.
Yeah. And get some up-to-date faucets. Get some stuff that when you go to a hotel, a nice hotel, that's what you see. So do not just get build a grade. Even if you on the lower, in the lower price market, I mean, little stuff like nice sink fixtures, nice faucets, that'll set your house apart from the next house, which they just got build a grade products there. So when somebody walk in your bathroom and they see these nice faucets and so forth, you're going to be a higher contender for on their list than that other house, because a lot of stuff is just how somebody feels when they walk through the door. When they walk through the door, when they enter the bathroom, everybody wants to feel like at home, that they can see themselves in your space or in that space.
Right.
New appliances, dishwasher, range hood. We usually don't put fridges in because I mean fridges is a high dollar item. Because you can end up spending $2,000-3,000 on a nice fridge, or even more. And you don't know what they want. They may want a fridge with a TV on it. You know what I'm saying, or the new Samsung with the computer on it, and you're not getting reimbursed for that.
Right.
And we haven't had anybody say, "Hey, you gotta have a fridge." And in today's market, our fridge is not going to be a deal breaker.
No, not these days, because everybody want their own. They want to be mindful and do their own thing, like a smart fridge or something like that.
Yeah, and believe it or not, a lot of people who buy in houses, they have the extra cash to do everything to make their house personalized once they move in.
Right.
They have a way of getting it. If they don't have it in the bank, they have a way of getting it. That's one thing about people. People are very creative. They'll figure it out.
True indeed.
And some people would do it step by step. Everything will not have to be done the day before they move in. You know what I'm saying? Stuff like this, paint, that'll probably have to be done definitely. But to get the most out of your the highest ARVs, you want to have fresh paint. And you don't have to buy expensive beer paint, but you want to have a fresh look. Flooring, hardwood floor is what everybody wants now. And if you could save the existing hardwood floor, most people, if they're buying an older home, they understand that the floors are going to be aged if it's existing hardwood floor. And some people like the character in an aged hardwood floor.
Right. True. You're right.
Tile. Most bathrooms are going to be tiled, especially the shower walls, the shower wall, the shower floor, the floor of the bathroom, the tubs around is going to be tiled. And take some time to go shopping. You know what I'm saying? If you do not like shopping, have somebody, a partner or a teammate who likes shopping, because you want something that's neutral and not something so, just because you like it, you know what I'm saying? Because you want it to appeal to the masses and not to just a particular group.
Right.
New cabinets. If your kitchen is small, use white cabinets or a light colored cabinet. And if you're doing a newer house, let's say a house that's only 5-10 years old, and they have, the cabinets are in good shape, you may be able to get away with just painting the cabinets. If you're not, depends on what your competition looks like, But if you have a small kitchen, get a bright color cabinet because that'll make it look bigger. Roof. That's another thing that the home inspector is going to check. So if your roof is 10 to 15 years old, you're right at that borderline that, because the guys who flip all the time, they already know they're going to put a new roof on.
Right.
If you started and you're trying to save $1 by not putting a new roof on, you may be doing yourself a disservice by trying to save a few dollars and your house is in the market longer versus somebody who put a new roof on. And because most people, they just don't want a big expense once they spend this money in the near future.
Right.
Windows. We always do brand new windows regardless. Because windows make your house just look new. You know what I'm saying? And energy efficient also. If you have wood windows, if you're not in a historic area and with all older homes around you that kept the wood windows for the character, then go ahead and get new windows, because they're not going to be energy efficient. They're going to be single pane for the most part. doors, get a sexy front door. You know what I'm saying?
Talk about the door that you almost got, DP.
Which one?
The one that Pettigrew was going to do.
Oh yeah, yeah. So Pettigrew was gonna, and he did come. He came. And he was going to paint a few locations for Pettigrew near you. Man, my phone. The Google is something else. The other Google going off there. But yeah, Pettigrew was going to do this European paint job on the door. But and it looks like glass. You know what I'm saying? So it's almost like you're looking into a mirror, but it's a colored background, so you can get it whatever color you want. But when you look at the door, it's like glass. You know, so you almost got to touch it to make sure it's not wet. But you know, it's a process. You know, it's not something that can be done. Like you can paint an exterior door in a couple of hours, 2 coats. If it's hot outside, you can probably get 2 coats on in 2 or 3 hours and let the first coat dry. With this process, with this European paint, it's a several day process.
Right.
You know, but the finished product is almost like, it's something that in the next house we're gonna bring Pettigrew, let them do that door. Because I think that'll sell the house by itself. Because nobody else will have that.
Nobody's gonna be ready for
that. So yeah, so the door, because that's one of the first 99% of houses when you pull up to the front in the front yard, you're looking at the front of the house where the front door is, and so that front door is going to, you know, you want it to be appealing, and you want when they pull into the yard, or even if they're parked on the street and they walk into the yard, you want them to imagine that they're coming home. You know what I'm saying? See themselves coming, wanting to drive up in the yard when they come home. You know, everybody has probably lived somewhere when they came home. They're like, "Damn, I got to get out of here." You know.
Right? Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah, for sure.
But you want that feeling that when you come home, it's home. You know, I can see myself living here. I can see the kids playing in the yard. I can, you know, you open that front door, and you know, and you want your door to stand out from the neighbor's door. Yeah. Mm-hmm. The trim. One thing we usually do, we go with a larger baseboard and crown molding in the common areas. You know, especially, you know, when you walk in your front door to your living room or dining room area, because when you walk in, you want that entrance to be so inviting. You know, because they're walking into other houses. You know, your house may be the 4th house that day that they're walking into. So you got to give them something that make your house stand out and is memorable. Like you see those HGTVs when they take these folks to these different houses, and now they got to make a choice, and now they got to recap, you know, what they like and what they didn't like about these other houses. You know,
right. Yeah.
So you want to give them and make an impression on them when they first walk in the door. This is a scenario. A typical costs and fees when you doing a fix and flip. You find the house you want to do is $100,000 purchase price. Rehab is going to be about 100. Cash to closing, usually bringing about 20%, minimum 20% of the purchase price. So you bringing $20,000 out of your pocket to closing. 10,000 of that may go towards the actual cost of the house. The other 10,000 is going to go through fees, homeowners insurance, builder's risk insurance, rather, any prepaid taxes, closing costs, loan origination fees, and so forth. The lender fees. So for a $200,000 loan, for example, and the 20,000 may be on the low side. If you're doing, let's say you're doing 3%, 3 points on the loan, that means that the lender is charging an upfront cost of 3% of the loan.
Right.
$6,000 that the lender charged. So that's 6,000 of that other 10 for fees. Then you got maybe two 2,500 in closing costs. Then you got your builder's risk. You know what I'm saying? So that can be anywhere from 20,000 cash at closing up to 25,000 cash at closing. You got to bring.
Yeah.
So let's say your new loan amount is 190,000. Your holding cost for 4 months, and it's usually 1% of your loan. So 1,900 per month for 4 months, $7,600, and that's assuming you get out of here in 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
So your total expense is 197,600, and let's say you sell this house for 275,000. The realtor takes their 6%. Got to pay the realtor. That's 16,500. Your potential profit is $40,900, assuming that this scenario is correct. The way you do your house as the scenario says, in the time frame and everything. Now, one would look at that and say, "Hey, spent almost 200,000. I made 40,000. That's only a 20% profit, right?" But in actuality, you only invested $20,000 out of your money, so you made 100% profit because the other money is not your money; it's borrowed money. So you invested 20,000 of yours, and you made 40,000. So you made 100% profit on your money,
Which is what you want.
yeah, if not more. But that's a good deal. You spent 20, made 40 in 4 months. I guess there's some things you can do, but this this is a more realistic deal. You know what I'm saying? And that's 275,000. I mean, you could have gotten 300,000 for this house. In today's market, you probably will be at a 300,000. If it was 275 a year ago, because there's so much competition to buy. So today's market, they're actually overbidding. Let's say this house appraised at 275. They would actually, you would get 10, 15, maybe even 20 bids your first 2-3 days on the market, because you have so many people who have been outbidded. Now, if they actually want to buy a house and can afford to buy, they're going to get the loan for whatever percentage they're getting it for 275, but they're going to actually come out of their pocket with the difference. And let's say 300,000 is the highest bid. The bank is only financing 275. Right. They're going to have to come in pocket with another 25,000 to meet their deficit. And a lot of them know that, hey, if I've already looked at 5-10 houses and I'm always getting beat, at some point, either I'm going to go up a lot more, because I'm pretty sure their realtor, because each one of these people have realtors advising them through this process.
Mm-hmm.
So their realtors like, hey, we've already seen 10 houses, 20 houses, and you bid it on 10, and we've been beat every time. So if you really want this house, you need to really think about how much more money you're able to come up with to make this possible. Because at some point, if it's a husband and wife couple, and if the wife really wants this house and they're tired of looking for houses, they're gonna be like, all right.
Yeah, I'm just done. Because they got food. Yeah. They're going to check out.
And it's good for the seller, you know what I'm saying? Because now he has a product with low supply and high demand,
mm-hmm.
which drives the numbers up,
Right.
So if you have something and I don't know how long this bubble is going to last, man. This may last 3 months. This may last a year. But at some point, supply and demand is going to level back out,
Yeah.
I believe, if I was to predict now, and I'm not giving anybody any financial advice. I'm not. So I honestly believe that if it's even if it's not as good as it is today, I don't think the market's going to fall that much until after the presidential election.
Okay.
And my reason for saying that is because Biden cannot get reelected if we have a terrible economy.
Okay.
So whatever they're doing to prop the government up and prop the economy up right now, they got to keep propping it up until he gets reelected. You know, everybody wants to be a two-term president.
Right.
Yeah. And if he doesn't, then it's going to look like he failed as a president.
Okay. Got you.
So I think we got a little bit of time left. What's this? This is first year, second year?
No, this is still his first.
Yeah. So we got a couple of years. Now that's just my assumption. Yeah. Anything can happen.
Right. Anything is subject to change, right?
He may say, "Well, there's too much. I don't want to deal with it no more." Like our mayor said, "Yeah, I don't."
Hey, stick to the
right? But yeah, so, yeah. But yeah, so I think this aggressive and this, you know, saying this high price of real estate is going to continue. And like I say, you know, once it goes up, if there's not a market correction, you know, prices are not just going to start declining, because now the difference between real estate and stocks, like crypto,
right.
If you must say something negative about a certain coin,
that's it.
It drops. You know, I've lost a lot of money in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Couple of months because of Elon. But real estate, once this house is purchased for $300,000, a similar house like this will be appraised at a similar number, you know, regardless of what anybody says, because now it's a comp. You know what I'm saying?
Correct. Yep.
And, you know, and the only reason this is being so high than the appraisal is because somebody's coming out of cash with the difference, you know. And real estate don't fluctuate like stock market does. Because, yeah. The only way real estate really fluctuates is because people are not able to buy. So jobs have been lost, the economy is crashing, you know. But if people are able to buy, you know, the number is the number. If my neighbor house sold for $300,000 yesterday, and I have a similar house with similar fixtures and similar finishes, and it's been rehabbed in the same year as my neighbor's, then my house should sell. Well, my house can be priced to sell for the same amount, because it should appraise at the same amount.
Right.
Yeah. So my house shouldn't sell $100,000 less because of a feeling. You know, we have evidence that, hey, this house sold for that, so my house should sell something similar. That's why it's called comps. It's comparable. You know.
Yeah.
Staging. Staging is something that, you know, I'm 50-50 on.
Why?
Today's market, I don't think you need to stage because there's so many buyers and not enough houses. So that could be an extra expense.
Okay.
And we've had a house that didn't sell like the first 2 or 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
And I shouldn't have went with this dude anyway. And I went against my best judgment.
You should have went with it, but you should not have.
You should not have.
Okay.
And then we got another realtor.
Okay.
And I was like, yeah, I'm tired of paying for this stage. And when I was, you know, interviewing her to come on and list the house again, and she was like, yeah, I saw the pictures of the house online. And Tell them come get the staging furniture. You don't need to stage it. I'm gonna sell the house like it is. I'm like, all right, cool.
Right.
And she did. 30 days. Within 30 days, we had a contract. You know.
That was convenient.
Yeah, it was because staging can become expensive. But you're talking about, and it depends on how many rooms, how many bedrooms you want to stage. Because normally you would stage the living room, dining room, have some odds and ends in the kitchen, and maybe one bedroom, the master bedroom. And you have towels and stuff in the bathrooms. But it could be, I think that staging was, if I'm correct, maybe $1,800 a month or something like that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So that was only one bedroom stage. Now, if you want 2 or 3 bedroom stage, then that number could get up there. And it seems expensive, but you're talking about somebody actually bringing furniture and actually place them in the house where, because I assume they're interior designers or some type of designers. And then when you're ready once you got the contract on the house, they come back and pick it up like it was never there.
Right. Yeah.
So it's a real service. So, but one good thing about staging is that it gives potential buyers a visual on what their furniture could look like in that space. Because I had somebody who not buy a house because they didn't think their beds could fit in the bedroom.
Really?
Yeah, it was like they had a California King or something like that, and they were like, the bedroom is not big enough for the bed set, and all the other stuff they had.
So it was one of those things where they needed the visual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I didn't need that visual for them because once they bought the house, they need to get rid of their furniture. I was like, but it helps. But then again, the next person who comes along and sees that their furniture may be the similar size, so now they can be like, all right, I don't have to buy new furniture. I can keep my same stuff because the furniture that's here is similar size to what I have at the house, wherever they are.
Yeah.
There are some studies that say stage houses sell faster because when you walk into an empty house, it's not,
it doesn't feel like home.
It doesn't feel like home, and you have too many ideas of what you can do, because most people don't know size and distance. Like most people don't know what 5 feet is or 10 feet is. So if they have a sofa, but if they see a sofa, they can, gauge is this sofa a little bit longer, a little bit shorter. You know what I'm saying? So they need some type of visual to actually get some type of reference from.
Right. Right.
And again, it could cost a few $1,000s. And again, it depends on how long it takes to sell that house. The longer it takes to sell that house, the more it's going to cost. And now these are those expenses that, you hopefully budget for in the beginning, that. And if staging takes 3, 4, 5 months to sell a house, after 2 months, you really need to sit down with your realtor. Because there's something, if other houses in the neighborhood are selling and yours isn't,
something is clearly missing.
Yeah, something's clearly missing. And one mistake we made on our first house that we sold, we went with a fairly new realtor. Now, buying a house, I have no problem dealing with new realtors or part-time realtors. Selling your house, today's market is artificial, so it's not always going to be like today's market. Selling your house, I would prefer to go with a full-time realtor. And because they usually have more experience.
Yep.
This is how they feed their family, so they're going to be more hungry to get the sale done. If you're a part-time realtor, you may have a full-time job. That realtor may just pay for the luxuries you have in life,
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's me. But buying a house, I use part-time realtors.
We use a part-time realtor for one of our investment properties.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the reasons why part-time realtors are more, sometimes more, are better for buying investment projects because they don't have to have the $200,000, $300,000 sale price to make that level of commission, because they have other ways. They usually have a full-time job that's, what I'm saying, this is just a part-time gig, so they don't have a problem doing the $50,000, $60,000, $100,000 sales on the buyer side, especially because they're not. Well, in our case, they're not running around the 10, 15 houses showing us to buy. We're usually finding a house, telling them, hey, we want this house. And if there's only time they really have to come if there's the electronic lockbox. If there's a combo lockbox, then they can just give it to you, just go in the house,
Right.
Yeah. So they're not doing all the stuff that they will be doing if you were buying a house that was ready to be moved into. Again, I said hire full-time realtor, list and market the property. This is what they do. You know what I'm saying? The realtors should list and market the property. They spit out yard signs.
Mm-hmm.
Get a realtor that their company actually uses social media. Social media is a very powerful tool for selling. And I've dealt with an older guy who's a realtor, and he had no clue about social media.
Really?
But he worked for a large real estate firm, but he just didn't know anything about it. So in the beginning, our houses were kind of selling themselves because the market was hot, similar like it is now. But when the market cooled down some, and that really tells if a realtor knows what he's doing or not, he or she's doing or not.
Right.
And it showed that the housing was selling itself, and he didn't have to put forth the effort. So now that he needed to put forth the effort, he was kind of out of his, it was out of his realm of making things happen, because he wasn't into the social media like everybody else was, because social media marketing can really, zero into a particular market. Like there's some programs that certain real estate companies have that actually would tell you how long when your house will sell, the demographic of the person who's going to buy your house. You know what I'm saying? Are they going to be an in-state or out-of-state buyer? They have this technology out there. Yeah.
All of that stuff matters.
Yeah. But you got to have somebody who knows how to use that stuff for your benefit. They list your house on the MLS, the FMLS, and these are just multiple listing sites, and every state has a specific one, and then there's a general one, I believe. I'm not a realtor, so I don't know. That's why you need a full-time realtor. Yeah. So, and even Google searches, you know what I'm saying? They need to be listing it on Google. So, and they need to understand search engine optimization, and that's a key. And I'm not an expert on that, but I know that from when we were listing a house, and this realtor didn't understand all that stuff. I was like, I need to start researching this stuff this time and the next time to make sure whoever we hire, they understand that. Neighborhood newspapers. A lot of neighbors have a local paper, because just because you live in the neighborhood, that don't mean you own the house that you're living in. You may be a renter and you may be looking for a house to buy.
Right.
And if you like your neighborhood and if your kids are already going to school in your neighborhood, you may not want to move out of your neighborhood, door knockers. Some realtors go around in the neighborhood, especially when they have an open house. And that's good for the neighborhood newspaper also. They list the open houses so local people in the neighborhood, and let's say you live in your neighborhood, you love it, and your sister or your brother is moving to the city that you live in, and they're looking for a house. You know, now that you get your neighborhood paper is listed there. The realtor puts a door knocker on saying, "Hey, we got an open house on Sunday." And they're handing out flyers in the neighborhood. You know what I'm saying? So it makes, because everybody, if you live in, especially if you live in the city, you know what I'm saying, in the city, and you love your neighborhood, and when your friends and family come to visit you, they like your neighborhood too. When they're ready to move, if there's an open house in that neighborhood, they're at least probably going to come and check it out. Um, open relatives hold open houses. One thing I learned too, if you have a local football team, or even on Sundays, have your open houses. I would even have it on Saturdays during football season, because
Right.
you're not going to want to come look at a house if their team is playing. You know.
And be mindful if it's during college season. Be mindful of that time too, because people would like to watch their college games on Saturday, especially in the South.
Yeah, but you got to pick a day on the weekend, so you got to give up. Which one you think is less. More people would miss the NFL game on Sundays or the college game on Saturday. But even if it's the NFL game on Sundays, like for instance, if the house in Atlanta, if Atlanta plays out at 1,
Have it at 4.
open house may need to be at 4. If Atlanta plays at 4, open house needs to be like from 12 to 3. So the husband or even the wife, if they die hard fans, they can go to the open house and be back at home by the time the game starts. Because what you don't want is your open house to be competing with the football game. Because if the wife drags the husband to the open house and he don't want to be there because he's interested in getting home to watch his football game or being somewhere with his boys to watch the game, he's not going to be that interested in really hear or notice what's going on. He's just coming because he has to come.
Right.
Not because he want to come.
Right.
When you get your offers, negotiating offers, buyers with conventional loans are number 1 on the list. They have less restriction for their buyers, easier to negotiate with buyers, and appraisers are more flexible. VA loans are second, not as restrictive as FHA loans. Appraisers are a little bit more flexible, a little flexible. FHA loans are third. FHA appraisers are inspectors because even though they're there for an appraiser, they go above and beyond and does a semi inspection, which they include in their appraisal report. They always have more items to resolve on the home inspection report. And if you get an FHA appraisal, and let's say the appraisal comes in $20,000 less than what you had to list it for, the FHA appraisal number is tied to your home for 6 months. So keep that in mind. Full price offers with no closing costs is always preferred. Compare offers and discuss with your realtor. If you get a low offer, submit a counter offer. Have a realtor call the buyer's realtor and get a feel for the buyer's reason for submitting the low offer. They may have a reason for doing it. They may just, you know, they may not want to go over a certain number, or they may feel that, they like the house, but they have to put a certain dollar amount in it to make it their own. Uh, Both realtors want and or need to sell a house. The buyer and the seller realtor wants every house they go into to be a sale. You know what I'm saying? That's the only way they eat. Well, that's the only way they get paid from the sale. Be willing to deny an offer if you don't receive the minimum threshold. Understand what's your floor. You can't go no lower than whatever that dollar amount is. You know what I'm saying? Accept the offer. Home inspections. There are always items on the report. The home inspector gets paid $400, $500, $600. They're going to find some stuff to report to the person who paid them. That's just a given. Negotiate must-have versus wants. Must-haves are outlets not working, leaking faucet, water heaters leaking, broken window, low-hanging tree branches above the roof need to be trimmed, HVAC not cooling. Wants are you may have not installed blinds. They want a room painted a different color, privacy fence, a longer driveway. I've had that happen. A tree remove, repair agreed upon items. Yeah, I mean, because you don't have to do everything, because even though the home inspector comes up with 25 items, the buyer and the realtor is going to sit down with each other and say, hey, which one of these items you have to make this deal close? And then they'll send you that list, and that may only be 5. You either can agree to it and say, hey, nah, I'll only do 4 of them. So it's still a negotiation at that point. Appraisal equal or above contract price, or below contract price. Realtor price property too high. If they came in below contract price, realtor can send mortgage company additional comps, and all you're doing is justifying why you think the appraisal is lower than it should be. Lower than the sale price to appraisal value, you can always lower the price because if the appraisal comes in lower in the average market, the buyer is good for the buyer because now 9 out of 10 he assumes that the seller is going to bring the price down to the appraisal value. Return house to the market. If it's FHA appraisal again, that lower number is going to stick to the house for 6 months. Lower the price to appraisal price, or the property will sit for 6 months. Once it's sold, closing day. Remove lockbox, go to the attorney office, sign docs, give out keys, garage opener, etc. to your agent or the attorney, and have funds wired to your check unless you just need a paper check to walk with. You successfully fixed and flipped your first house.
Woohoo!
Yeah. And it's on to the next one,
Right. On to the next. If you survive that one.
Yeah.
Because you may go through that one and be like, nah, I'm good. I don't want to do this no more.
Yeah, I mean, it happens. I mean, it could be so challenging that you like, that's it. It was a good experience, but it's too much,
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So that's it. Anything you want to say about the slideshow there? I got an announcement to make.
No. Go ahead. I like surprises. Let's go.
Just want to wish my mom a happy birthday. Her birthday is today, so happy birthday, Mom. So.
Shout out to the Queen. Happy birthday.
Yeah. So that's it, Dale. You can wrap it up. It's hour and 15.
All right, man. So let's do it. We're gonna do it again next week. What we gonna talk about next week?
I think the next slide is the buy and hold, I believe.
Yeah. Buy and hold. And Yeah, we're going to continue to do this. We got a few more modules to do. So, thank you for bearing with us and thank you for sticking with us and learning. We're hoping that you take this information and you're able to use it and apply it. And for DP, I am Dev. This is Real Talk with DP and Dev, and everything that you do it with positivity, creativity, and authenticity. Peace, beautiful people.
Yeah.